I just felt like an imposter. I felt like an imposter in your own skin, and I got really good at hiding how I felt.
What is that discomfort feeling like?
I was completely detached from what I was seeing and who I was to who I actually am inside. So for me, I'm just trying to make my outsides mirror who I really feel like I am on the inside. My 15-year-old self would just be very happy.
When did you first know that you were trans?
Well, I mean, I remember watching this YouTuber in her video. She was talking about how she was trans and something that she was doing, and I was like, oh my God. A huge weight lifted off my shoulder because I finally had clarity on the way I felt.
Sammy, who's 22, says it explained the anger, anxiety and extreme self-consciousness she had felt since she was little.
I remember going down the Barbie aisle at the warehouse, and I would be always so excited, I mean, hello, but like riddled with fear. I couldn't go, oh, I love that. I could never really enjoy something because I was so scared of what people around me would say.
You were 15 when you realised?
Yeah. You know, it was the heavy thoughts of like, what am I going to do, you know? Do I remain how I am because it fits in with how everyone else would like it, or do I live for myself?
She finally confided in her doctor and asked him to tell her parents.
I couldn't do it. I had ulcers in my mouth, my hair was falling out, I was so incredibly thin. I think I probably was worried more about what my dad might think, you know, being a typical New Zealand bloke. I mean, it took him, you know, a good minute to get his head around it, but he was amazing. I know he was like my biggest supporter. Like, he would talk his clients' ears off about me, especially when I probably brung social media into it and started documenting it.
The man that I love sat me down last night and he told me that it's over.
Sammy started hormone treatment when she was 17 and recently has had surgery to create a more feminine shape. She posts stories about her transition and plans for gender-affirming genital surgery.
Why do you want people to be able to get more information about trans people?
I think there's so much importance for people like myself online at the moment just because you've seen what has also been thrown in the media.
It all changed with the arrival of Posey Parker.
I get hate every day online still now. The stuff I see, it's like I just have to skip sometimes because it just eats too much of my soul. For people that sit there and think this is such a fad or a trend, it's like open your eyes just a little bit more to realise how much someone's taking on just by transitioning, how brave they're being by telling their closest family members that they love.
Last year, Sammy lost one of those people herself. Her dad had been fighting a battle with cancer.
I know he left this planet with seeing me the happiest he ever was. He was very proud of like the person I became. Yeah. I couldn't have asked for a better dad. Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for a better girl. Just going from a 17-year-old pimply boy to this beautiful woman you see now, and I just think, gosh, how can anybody deny who she is?
Did she say anything to you growing up that you thought was an indication?
She probably wouldn't want me to say it, but she did want to cut it off at one point. She said, I just want to cut it off. And I was just like, no, we can't do that. I could always tell there was something going on, but I just thought, right, we'll just wait and see, because you don't really want to direct them anyway.
What do you say to people who say that this is a choice?
Nobody chooses this life. You don't choose to go through the heartache and just hating yourself. Yeah, no, she's just been a great kid right from the word go, and just all the crap that she's had to put up with, you know.
What would your husband say about Sammy?
Just to keep on going on. Yeah, he'd just be so proud.
What I knew at 16 was that something wasn't right. I'm not a guy. But what came after that was the denial phase. Oh, you can't change your gender. I'll just be a man in a dress. And I was really transphobic to myself. Just tried to talk myself out of it.
Do you want to just tell me where we're going and what you are doing today, Ella?
Well, I'm just going to my doctor's, talk about hormones.
What have you noticed since you've been taking these?
Start with the obvious, I've grown breasts. My skin's gotten softer. Some people say my features have gotten softer as well. I look more feminine. Feels good, especially when it's your masculine body that's causing you discomfort.
Ella has been using estrogen hormones since she was 19.
The hormones that we're talking about with gender-affirming hormone therapy are what we call the sex hormones. So that would be estrogen or testosterone, and all of us have got those hormones in our body, but just at a kind of different balance, have more of one than the other. So it's kind of about redressing that balance to be more in line with what people's gender identity is.
Are they reversible?
They have irreversible effects. People really need to understand what the permanent changes are before they start. It really is making a difference for people's lives in their confidence, and they're more relaxed and just feeling more comfortable in who they are.
Oh, did I have my script? That might help. Might help.
But for Ella, the hormones can only take her so far. It's really important to her to have surgery. She's on the wait list. Only 9 people had it publicly funded last year, and there are currently more than 400 in the queue.
The gender reassignment surgery, the only thing I know of is that I'm on the list. I'm more likely to have to pay for it out of pocket and get it done myself than I will get it publicly funded at the rate things seem to be going.
Why is surgery so important to you?
It's the part that I hate the most. It's my genitalia. It's the most masculine part of me, and it just makes me sick sometimes. Some days it's easier to deal with, some days it's impossible. The impossible days, I just curl up in bed and forget about life.
Sometimes transgender people have what's called gender incongruence or dysphoria.
There are sort of 2 main sources of dysphoria, and one is the discomfort you feel with your own body, and then the other one is this discomfort you feel when other people don't see you for who you are. Most people will be like, I wash my body, I look in the mirror to check on things, but actually I would avoid looking at myself because in my mind I am male or female or non-binary, and then when I see myself, it can be really shocking and upsetting because that body just does not match the who that person is.
Surgery could be years, possibly decades away. So while Ella waits, patches are all she's got.
I got told to put it on the abdomen by my endocrinologist, but...
You're kind of hoping to get a bit more clarity about a surgery timeline. Do you have any?
No. No. I can't blame the doctor. She doesn't have any either. I'm a bit cheated about it all, to be honest. What more can I say about that? I don't know when I'll be seen. For some transgender people, the weight and the mental strain is just too much for them. And I feel like the delay could cost people their lives.
When they came out to us, which was during a family holiday, and they said, hey, Mum, Dad, I'm transgender, and I was kind of like, oh, that's nice, dear. But inside I was kind of like, I have no idea. I've never heard of transgender. I do not know what this means. It was really, really hard to remember a different name and different pronouns. And I had to sit there and just keep chanting them to myself, chanting the pronouns, chanting the name to try and get it in my head. Back then, there was really no support for parents.
That's why this Wellington mum started her own support group. It began with 5 families of transgender children, and over 8 years has grown to 1,200.
Most parents just want a bit of reassurance. In any situation that needs any form of medical or psychological intervention, parents want as much information as they can about the pros and cons.
One area where parents often have questions is around the use of puberty blockers.
Puberty blockers are a medication that are used to just pause puberty. They can't turn it backwards, so they can't reverse changes that have already happened, but absolutely they can just pause things. So this, if you imagine if physical changes that are causing distress are occurring, by stopping those can be incredibly beneficial, on a physical level and on a psychological level. But if you were to stop those puberty blockers, puberty would just kick in again.
Auckland paediatrician Dr. Rachel Johnson is currently seeing a variety of patients, from young children to people in their 20s.
Over 10 years of following young people who are on blockers, I do think that accessing puberty blockers in the context of the way that young people can in New Zealand is really appropriate. They're not some universal treatment for every trans youth. A youth, that's always a really carefully considered decision whether, the benefits outweigh any potential risks.
Are they safe and reversible?
I would absolutely say in the years of experience of using blockers and based on the worldwide evidence that they are a safe and reversible medication.
But overseas, there isn't consensus on the evidence. Earlier this month, the UK put a stop on virtually all doctors being able to prescribe puberty blockers. Now children can only access them if they're part of clinical research. The NHS decision came after a high-profile legal case against the Tavistock Centre by a 24-year-old woman who was given puberty blockers as a teenager but later regretted her transition, and a government review which found gaps in the evidence around the drugs.
There's nothing that exists here in Australia or New Zealand to demonstrate more benefit than exists overseas. So the fact that the UK is now saying this can only be done as part of research, it demonstrates that research still needs to happen.
Dr. Dylan Wilson is a paediatrician in Australia who has concerns about puberty blockers.
Rather than allow them to explore, it does the opposite. It fixes them into a pathway that they find very hard to get out of because they don't have the ability to say, actually, this is wrong for me.
Are we not giving children enough credit? Do you think that some children really know themselves well?
I still don't believe a child who's precocious, articulate, hugely intelligent, and is absolutely adamant and convinced that they are who they say they are. I still don't feel like a child of the age of 12, 13, 14, even up to 16 can truly understand the implications.
We're speaking to Dr. Wilson on Zoom because New Zealand doctors with similar views were worried about speaking out.
My main concerns for New Zealand is the lack of ability to express those concerns and have those concerns shut down and considered transphobic as a result. The lack of ability to discuss this as a medical issue is hugely concerning.
So the first thing to be clear on is sex and gender are different. Sex is anatomy, it's what you were born with. Gender, on the other hand, is what you identify as, who you are. This is where we get trans women and trans men, people who are assumed to be one gender at birth because of their sex, but are actually another. Then there are non-binary people, trans people who aren't just men or women. They might be both or neither or another gender altogether. Then there are cisgender women and men. In case you're wondering, cis is a Latin term that is the opposite of trans. So cisgender people's gender is the same as the sex when they were born. Most people are cis. Around 0.8% of Kiwis identify as trans. Now, being transgender has been around as long as there has been people. Being trans or non-binary looks and means different things in different cultures. For example, fa'afafini in Samoan culture or irewhiti in Māori. You might have also heard the term intersex. People who are intersex are actually born with ambiguous genitalia. Their bodies don't fit the typical definitions of either sex. And then there is a person's sexual orientation or sexuality, straight, gay, bi, etc. This just refers to the gender or genders that you are attracted to. And from the transgender community, some simple advice. Don't dead name people. Don't call them by their past name. Use the name that they currently use and use the pronouns that people currently use. He, she, him, her, they, or them. It makes a difference to them. And if you're not sure what to say, just ask. Don't be afraid to mess up. People appreciate your effort and care. This is incredibly major surgery. What happens when they wake up? How do they react, your patients?
I mean, I wish you were, if it's just the sheer joy of finally, having this last piece of a puzzle that kind of fall into place for them. And we're not unfamiliar in this hospital to be witnessing, tears of joy and just the elations and the relief of not having to hide your body and to be able to just kind of get on with your life. Just for a young trans guy, to be able to just get on with your life, that's big for them.
So when someone sits down in here, they know what they want and what they need.
Yes.
They really know.
Yes. Bear in mind, Paddy, that all the patients who come through this door to see me have already been through a very long journey of initial diagnosis. They've been through a very long, comprehensive assessment process. And because of the hormone treatment that they have had for years, they already long lived in their gender identity, been accepted as their gender identity. By the time they present to a reconstructive surgeon's office, often the answer is very crystal clear. Say for a trans man, what they really, really would want is to be able to go out there and enjoy the next summer by the beach without having to hide their body and wear these binders and things like that, isn't it? So for a trans woman, sometimes a 1-hour operation that shaves down their Adam's apple just means that they no longer have to always hide behind scarves and things like that for them. So it just provides that next level of ease and comfort and freedom of living that I think all of us deserve. So, yeah.
Do we need more of these operations done to help the kind of people that you help in this office?
I believe so. We are seeing more patients entering gender service, and so long term I am projecting that potentially more clients will require gender affirmation genital surgeries.
Do we need more of you, basically?
Yes. Yes, that's the, yeah, absolutely.
How does that feel for you personally, outside of the surgery and everything, when you do see one of your patients just living their life with a new gender?
For me, when I see a patient who come through the other end of their reconstructions and is able to get on with their lives, and to me that just means that our society is able to see them beyond just their gender identity. See them as just you and me. As a journalist, as a doctor, as a teacher and whatnot, so that they are no longer defined by just one thing. It's a major, we're supposed to be unbiased, but you can't help but be very moved by it too,
It's taken a lot for me to get you to do this interview.
Yes.
You really haven't wanted to do this interview. Why are you doing it?
Well, I'm doing this because I have come to the realization that no matter how transformational reconstructive surgeries are, the biggest factor for my patients' well-being lies in the society's acceptance.